Today's railway conversation is with Stanislas Pinte from Brussels in Belgium. Stanislas used to be the CEO of two companies, the signaling company most recently, and before that, ERTMS Solutions. We talk about how a small company can enter the ETCS supply market, how they can survive against the big multinationals, how we can keep the cost of onboard ETCS equipment at bay, and much more. Please like, share, and subscribe. And now enjoy the conversation. Stan, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Frank. Thank you very much for hosting me.
Let's start with a easy and innocent questions. What made you call your company the signaling company?
It's a very nice question. I think it's the first time I get a lot of comments about the name, but the first time I get a question. Have you seen The Social Network?
Yes, I've seen that.
And
So that's for people that don't know, that was the movie about Facebook.
exactly. And then there's that famous scene in which the founder Mark Zuckerberg is thinking about calling his company the Facebook. And then his partner or venture capitalist said, no, Facebook. And it was very obvious for me when we were trying to create a signaling company that we should name it the signaling company. Plus, I have a few colleagues that come from Ansaldo STS, and Ansaldo STS was called La Compagnie des Signaux before.
Okay.
And La Compagnie des Signaux in French means the signaling company, and they're not called that anymore. So we say, why not? Why not be called the signaling company?
Yes.
And it sticked.
Okay. So before the signaling company, you were the CEO of a company like ERTMS Solutions. Is that the same thing and just renamed, or are there two different companies altogether?
It's really two different companies. I started ERTMS Solutions in 2004 with three partners, and it was really clear when we met our first shareholder in the signaling company, a freight operator. It was around 2017, 2 years before starting. It immediately was clear that we needed to create a new company and not extend ERTMS Solutions. Companies, they created for a purpose and with a certain culture and zone of comfort. And ERTMS Solution is more boutique and was doing specific tools for maintaining trackside and onboard systems. And my colleagues at ERTMS Solution always felt that what we did with the signaling company was impossible to do. They were not alone. The whole industry was thinking, these guys are crazy, they will never make it. But especially my ex-partners. And we did very different things between 2004 and 2017-18. So it was normal to create a new entity, even though ERTMS Solution has been a shareholder with Lineas, the freight operator, until Škoda Transport became the majority shareholder in 2023.
Yeah, we talk about Škoda in a minute, but before that, so when you founded the signaling company, was it clear to you from the start what you want to focus on? I mean, the signaling company could do pretty much anything to do with signaling,
Yeah,
but on
I
the
agree.
you certainly have to focus a bit because otherwise you just get lost in the woods. So how did this work?
Yeah.
How did you decide which area would want to play in first and what to focus on?
It was we've been extremely lucky. So a common failure cause for startup is when you don't have a customer starting. And we created the signaling company, actually ERTMS Solution and Lineas, which is a private freight operator. They made a baby together that's been called the signaling company. And that baby received a birth gift, which is a contract to retrofit 109 freight locomotives. And that contract basically defined the purpose of the company. The purpose of the company is to create the perfect onboard ETCS solution to optimize that contract so that our shareholder slash customer is happy. So there was no discussion about are we going into trackside or not. Immediate from the onset, we had to focus on onboard. Trackside, we don't have yet any trackside project, but the off-the-shelf safe computer that we use in our computer box, it's a SIL4 certified computer from Duagon Knorr. It doesn't mean we only use that one, but that's the one we chose for our platform for the first version. It's also used by other companies for interlocking projects. And then it became very obvious after 2-3 years that with our IEVC platform, we have also a trackside platform. It's not only an onboard platform, even though it's optimized for onboard. Today we have no contract related to trackside, and we have only a bit of market request, but there's a lot to do for onboard.
Yeah, I'm still digesting what you said about this initial order for more than 100 freight locomotives to fit them with ETCS. I would have thought from a client perspective, so from Linea's perspective, that was quite a risky thing. Because I mean, you didn't have a product, and saying, well, we need more than 100 locomotives fitted with ETCS, and we pick a supplier that doesn't have a product at all, not even started the development of a product. It's
Frank,
an enormous risk, isn't it?
I like to take risks, and I'm not even sure if I would be a decision maker on Linea's side, I would have taken that risk. But there were a few favorable factors. First, the price level perceived by Lineas from the big players, it was Alstom and Siemens in Belgium, were unsustainable. And that's not only the price of the ETCS on board. Lineas has diesel locomotives, quite powerful shunting locomotives, but diesel engine takes most of the place in the loco, meaning that you have very little space to put ETCS, meaning that if you use a traditional monolithic product, you need to do a lot of structural changes on the locos. And these structural changes, they cost money, time, immobilization of the rolling stock. So the whole onboard retrofit project was perceived as very risky, so very expensive. Plus, Geert Pauwels, the CEO at that time, a very nice guy. He's a McKinsey consultant that got hired by the historical passenger railway operator in Belgium to restructure the freight division. There was a freight division in Belgian railways, and then the freight division was not doing good, so a lot of consultants were put to make it better. And Geert and his team, they carved out the freight to a private company that became Lineas. So it took him a couple of years, and after it was starting to stabilize, he wanted to make something entrepreneurial from Lineas. So I don't know. It was an encounter. We liked each other, and the project I proposed, they perceived the coming ETCS market as sure. So that's zero risk that there will be business for a good ETCS product. Also, they understood that the big players, Alstom, Siemens, they developed their solution in the 90s, in the first decade of the 20th century, and it started to get more mature. So the perceived risk of making a new one was going down. And I think all these factors combined, but I agree with you, this is not normal. We're lucky it happened for the signaling company. It's not something that normally happen. And I see it when I talk now with the customers. We come with a certificate that is from September last year. We come with hardware products. We come with 20 locomotives of Lineas are in commercial operation now. So it's like the perception about us radically changed. But at that time, it was insane. It was crazy. I agree.
Yeah. This fleet of how many said
you remember? you remember our coffee in Melbourne?
Yes.
The company had 4 months, just 4 months, and it we had no idea to see at that time when we would succeed and how.
Yes. Yes. I remember when we met, you worked on other products before, and then you told me you wanted to venture into the ETCS onboard market. And to be honest with you, I think I wished you best of luck, but
You did?
honestly I thought, who knows whether that will work. And yeah, it's really an amazing journey, and you probably got a leg up, which, as you said, was quite unusual in the marketplace. This fleet of more than 100 freight locomotives, how many different types are there, just to get an understanding of how the fleet looked like?
One type, 7 variants. And the variants, out of the 109, 22, they operate not only in Belgium, but also in Netherlands and Germany. So that's 3 variants. Then they have variants that have remote control, but that's not integrated with ETCS. The variant that have a specific radio system. So minor things. So the variants influence really little the ETCS integration, except the 22 that drive in 3 countries. Because for that, you need to, for Netherlands, we just interface with an existing Class B system. And for Germany, we are currently developing our PZB solution. So we make an app to replace the legacy PZB.
Wow, that is so impressive. I mean, it certainly helps that it's only one type of locomotive, because a big chunk of the cost of an ETCS onboard fitment is really the design of the system. And when you have small lot sizes of different types of locomotives or trains, that really drives up the cost tremendously. So having a fleet of more than 100 locomotives where the fitment design is more or less the same, that's really quite helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I mean, you said something interesting. Is you said the aim was to develop the perfect ETCS onboard solution. And I mean, people may have different views on what perfect means. I mean, obviously, your focus was clearly fitment on freight locomotives with limited fitment space, which is certainly one aspect of perfect. Yeah, because fitment size is definitely a big factor, specifically with retrofitment of ETCS on existing trains, on existing locomotives, and particularly with freight locomotives. That's a topic, or a challenge that often arises, that there's just not enough space on the locomotives to get a bulky 19-inch rack in there, which is half the size of a cabinet. That nobody knows where to put this. Yeah, you can't put it on top of the loco, you can't put it underneath the loco, you can't put it into the loco. So it's really a problem. So how did you solve that? What was your definition of a perfect ETCS onboard solution?
So first, we didn't know. So at onset, when creating the company, we didn't know. Lucky for me, my boss now, I used to be his boss, but now he's my boss. It's Alexandre Betis. He used to run the CBTC product line for Ansaldo Paris, that became Hitachi, that became Hitachi. And he commissioned around 20 cities with driverless metro. All of this was brownfield, meaning existing metro sets, because Hitachi is not selling new cars. So he brought a lot of experience about integrating digital products into old rolling stock. But we started with a journey, a small tour in Europe. We visited a few operators and vehicle manufacturers, and we just interviewed them. We said, okay, we have a contract to retrofit 109 locos. What should we put into the user requirement specifications? So space and weight came. That was one thing, but there were many other stuff. Customers were asking for simplifying the design. If we look today at our 3 boxes that connect with Ethernet to a central switch, This is a very simple design. When we show the design, we don't have the people, the reaction of surprise or fear when someone that is not familiar with digital products sees that, because I think we simplified it. The customers is also asking about simplifying the cabling, less cables, smaller cables, the capability to make the cables themselves by sourcing the connectors directly and making the cable up to specifications. And then something they did not express, well, not directly. I will come back to that after. Yeah, we were lucky to have a contract with Lineas, and that contract was full of requirements. And some requirements were related to service level agreement. Lineas was saying, you have maximum 4 hours per year of downtime for a vehicle because of you. If you have more, you pay penalty. When you face that, you start saying, oh, what can I do to first minimize the amount of penalties, and then if I'm in fault, if I cause a service level affecting failure, how am I going to be able to fix it as fast as possible? So to minimize the and again, when I tell the story now, it looks a rational thinking, but startup do not live like that. You know, you make plans and then the reality kicks in, and then you mitigate and you overcome, and then plans they change. So I'm actually trying to make a story after the fact. But how do you minimize the cost of your system and the cost of replacing the parts, especially when you are a small team? You take a decision to use maximum amount of off-the-shelf components. So we were forced to do that because we did not plan and we did not have the money to make a factory to create our own electronics. But by maximizing the amount of off-the-shelf components, it's causing your design to simplify a lot. You're not free to change and do whatever you want. You're composing existing building blocks, and at the end you obtain a system that is highly simplified. On how to minimize the cost of bugs and to optimize the speed at which you solve bugs. This is a benefit that we're still trying to articulate, and it's very good to have a lot of discussion with customers because they know the benefits you should have, and we as a supplier we're a bit blind to what benefits we should have. So, okay, you have bugs in your system, and your software is huge. How do you make sure you can solve them quickly? What we did is separate very clearly the hardware, the operating system, and the applications. So I mentioned we are developing the PZB application. That application is going to be one text file. The ETCS application is now certified. It's one text file, one single text file. It's big. It's around 350,000 lines of stuff, and the functions that are there are much less actually. And that simplicity, that clear separation of hardware, platform, and applications allow the very specialized team to work separately to fix the problems. And now with our first customer, when we have a problem coming from the field and it's an application bug, when the time between the moment they report the bug and the moment we deploy a new certified version of the software in the vehicles, you need to go through the whole V cycle for that, and you need including to have DEBO, NOBO, ISA to update their report, because it's safety system. You cannot deploy a software just because you correct a bug. You need the whole V cycle, SIL4 compliance cycle to happen, and then you need your independent assessor to say, I accept the new version. So we take that between 30 and 60 days. And we recently realized it's very, very fast. So Yeah, a lot of things to tell about the benefits, and we still don't know all the benefits we think are in our product. But to summarize, we think it's a smaller product. It's an application platform like an iPhone, meaning that today we are developing PZB, but tomorrow we are going to develop a Class B system for France. We have requests for the Nordics. Who knows which additional applications are going to come? And it also started customers. They want to make their own apps. The Belgian railways, they say, we have a problem with the work zones. So if you leave ETCS operating on a work zone, it will cause a braking reaction at every balise it finds. And in a work zone, it's unacceptable. So we need a way to disable ETCS in the work zone, but safely. We cannot just isolate.
Yeah.
And then they say, okay, that work zone application would operate when the driver triggers it. He switches to work zone application in a safe way with a coded way on the DMI. And once it's operating there, it's sort of geofencing the locomotive inside the work zone. We put special balise at the end to prevent it goes out. But inside the work zone, it should just monitor maximum speed and then do vigilance. That's it. And display speed. And it took a few weeks to make a small spec with the customer. And then the Belgian railways were not our customer, but they were renting the locomotive of Lineas, who was our customer. And Lineas paid for the app. They say, we want that app. We pay for it. That's amazing. That's a way to answer new needs that are coming constantly without contaminating your generic product. We did not touch the ETCS application. It was another app executing on the side. And that reminds me something a customer of us was telling recently. Look, now you're there. You have one customer. What when you will have 50 customers? Will you become as slow as the big ones? And then we explain, we don't think so, because we have that application platform. And it's clearly separated what is ETCS, what is not, and what is the platform below and the hardware. And with that clean separation, we are prepared to scale.
When it comes to your training on advanced signaling and train control, nothing beats a good quality. That's why I partnered with the Informa Connect Academy to create 7 fantastic online trainings that I believe are the best and most comprehensive portfolio of online trainings in this space in the entire world. You see the 7 trainings that I'm offering through Informa in the boxes here. And you also see at the very top a web link where you can find information on all of these training courses. If the education and your personal development in the field of advanced train control is of any importance to you, I recommend highly that you check it out. And I would look forward very much to welcome you in one of these training courses. All of them have interactive elements, so we can actually meet face-to-face in those trainings, even though they are online courses. It needs to be seen to be believed. And now back to the conversation. Yeah, you said you're not quite clear what the benefits of your product are, or maybe you just mean you're not quite clear what all the benefits of your product are. I think 2 benefits that are definitely very high on the wish list of a freight operator is, firstly, can you fit the equipment? So that's again about fitment space. And then secondly, the cost of designing it, fitting it, and getting it into service. With regards to that, I recently read a report from the European Union, a study about the development of ETCS onboard costs. And that study was quite concerning, because it said that over a period of 4 years, the cost for ETCS retrofitment of locomotives and trains have doubled. I would like to get your views on that, and obviously you didn't even have a product 4 years ago, so you're probably not part of that statistic. But what do you think could be the reasons for that, and what do you think your company or your product can do to prevent an ongoing cost increase like that?
Um, it's a good question, and I've seen the same. I know the ERA study you mentioned. It's a document very important for us, and there is one famous project that's been reported on LinkedIn, made by Masteris and SNCF, for locomotives of SNCF Réseau, and it was about so diesel shunting locomotives, around 40 of them, and the total price of the contract was 60 million euros.
Hmm.
So 1.5 million or a bit less per locomotive, which is, this is shocking.
Yes.
This is shocking,
Yes.
especially when the average price of the ETCS onboard solution, if you go to the market, it will be, I would say, depending on the numbers you buy, around the 200,000 euros. That's a generic solution with all the peripherals, but not the things that are unique to your vehicle. So if you imagine that the cost of one locomotive is 1.3, 1.4 million euros, you almost double to get to Australian dollars, or not? It's like it is,
Yeah.
the exchange rate is that. And so 1.3, 1.4 million per locomotive. And if you subtract the generic part around 200, then you have 1.1 million of specific works for each locomotive. So we're not talking about the first in class authorization,
Yeah.
and required engineering. So the bulk of the money is going on repeatable operations, vehicle per vehicle. How do you get there? Are you building like a diamond a diamond cutting tool that is so rare that needs to be engineered? Like, how do you spend 1.1 million on a loco? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it, unless the solution is very big and you need to like move the engine. And moving the engine is like a substantial modification of the locomotive. So for me, that's really a mystery. That's a mystery. And I think the most of the cost should be in the first in class engineering. That's the non-recurrent cost. And to optimize them, you need a simple design and a way to easily adapt with the specifics of the engine, to easily rewire some signals in a software defined way.
Yeah.
If you have that, it should minimize the first in class cost. And then if you have a compact product with simple interfaces, it should minimize the per unit cost. Frankly speaking, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and that sector needs improving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the good thing about the study was that there was a number of reasons given in the different stages of the onboard design and installation and approval. And in the design phase, there was a lot of customization that was listed as one of the main reasons for the high cost. Customization not just between different countries, but even within a country, customization between different projects, which I find very irresponsible by the respective country. But that's probably what happens if you look at a project in isolation and the next project again in isolation, and so on. Another thing that that was mentioned as a major cost factor was the whole approval effort. And I mean, on documentation and going back and forth, you can basically spend forever. Yeah, it can take years and years and years, and that was one of the things where they said it sometimes takes 3 years to get an onboard application accredited and certified. And I mean, if you look at this, then the cost for that would be enormous. And again, if that's not just a cost per fleet or per class, but if it's really a cost per vehicle, then yeah, it's crazy. But The downside obviously is that it leads to a point where rolling stock companies, rolling stock operators, they simply cannot afford this. Yeah, I mean, when I was still in Europe, there were companies, freight companies, that bought their locomotives second-hand, and then basically said, well, if I have to pay 1.5 million for an ETCS onboard, that's almost the price of what I paid for the locomotive, for the entire locomotive, with motor and all.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is a major obstacle for a fast rollout of ETCS. If users are simply scared to death that they just cannot afford it. Yeah, they go into contract with some kind of supplier, and then the offered price may be much lower, but then realistically during the implementation there come all kinds of variation because of unforeseeable things, which weren't really unforeseeable, because I mean they are listed in the study as almost normal for ETCS onboard projects.
So I want to quote an example that you know very well. You probably know Andrew Harvey from Horizon. He was at the NTC conference speaking about Horizon experience, and frankly speaking, I drew a parallel between Horizon and my ex-shareholder Lineas. These are both private companies operating freight fleets. They have very high expectations on the operations. The ETCS that is on board should not lower the operating performance in any way. And Lineas is very satisfied, and Andrew looked very satisfied during his speech. So I think that the private companies, for me, Lineas is a success story, and they arranged a contract with a supplier. They took a risk, but now it's working quite well. So I don't recognize myself in these horror stories about projects dragging on forever. I think someone should be responsible for the project. For Lineas, we were responsible. If the project would take 2 more years to get authorization, the signaling company could not invoice. It would probably die. And somehow it's healthy, you know. It's healthy to have one supplier or a group of suppliers that take a responsibility and they commit against certain deliverables. Another lesson, we work a lot to mitigate the authorization risk in Belgium, because every delay in authorization would delay our invoices and would put the company at danger. So how to mitigate authorization delay? Well, you take an appointment with the NSA and you start by listening to them and respecting them. And we worked a lot on maintaining personal relationship with them, understanding their needs, preparing files with strong quality, in which we were like presenting files that were not perfect, but we were accepting the feedback and we were correcting fast and be transparent about the reasons and things, and it made the trick. We got an authorization on time. We had 1 year delay for the ETCS, which is small for the generic ETCS product, but for the authorization of the first locomotive in Belgium, we were on time, and that's it took a lot of hard work before. So to mitigate these kind of risks, just do the work. Do the work with the NSA, with the stakeholders. In Australia, there will be no ERA, but there will probably be similar bodies at some point. So I believe in respect and cooperation.
Yeah. Talking of Australia, you've been here recently, haven't you? You were at Austria. Yeah. You did some surfing as well, from what I saw on LinkedIn, but we're not talking about surfing. So what made you come to Australia? Because for people who don't know the market here, it doesn't seem to be the obvious market for ETCS.
I agree. And I've come to Australia since 2014 for ERTMS solution, so I kind of knew the market. I went to every Ausrail before COVID, and the reason why I came to Australia was that we started a collaboration with a company called Waptec. We started that collaboration 1 or 2 years ago. And the idea behind that collaboration was to make a collaboration on the onboard product. The signaling company brings ETCS on board. Waptec brings PTC on board, which is massively used in the US and North America, and South America. And in Australia, the NNI problematic and the consultations, the market consultation about that came last year. A lot of people were surprised that I was in Waptec booth during the Ausrail conference. Everyone asked me, are you Waptec, etc. I said, no, we do a collaboration, and it's like a Sony and Leica. We do a collaboration. We put our brands together, we put product together, and we think we're offering more value to the market by doing that. So that was the main reason to go to Australia, and then I took opportunity to visit.
I mean, the fitment of freight locomotives with ETCS here in Australia is obviously the elephant in the room when it comes to interoperability, because we have some networks that will be fitted with ETCS, which are pretty much quarantined from other networks, except for freight locomotives. So freight locomotives are pretty much the only vehicle, well, not the only ones, but they make up the vast majority of vehicles that really need to be interoperable, because they travel across multiple different networks that need to be fitted with ETCS. So to what extent do you think that, based on your success with Lineas in Europe, that you have a good, how do I say that, a good offer for Australia, if we can talk about that?
I think what's good is that these freight locomotives are majority owned by private companies. The private companies will have decision makers that are not going to be specialized in signaling systems. They're going to look at the financial and the risk. And we now have a product that starts to be proven in use. But when they will compute the deployment cost on their fleets, I think that's where we're going to shine. For the Belgian locomotives, we immobilize them 2 weeks. Our competitor immobilized them 9 weeks. And during these 9 weeks, the locos are not sitting in the workshops. There are people drilling and screwing and cabling. So that's going to translate into high installation cost versus ours, which will be lower. And I think that the mathematics is going to show that we have a chance.
Okay.
Regardless, even without thinking about advanced features and applications and stuff, people are going to look at the deployment cost per unit, and yeah, I think we have a strong chance.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. I don't think you can play in the market here by just flying back and forth between Europe and Australia. One, you wouldn't have the time anyway. I mean, you are the head of the company after all. You've got a few other things to do. And secondly, I really think that the customers here want and also deserve a local presence of knowledgeable people that they can liaise with on a day-to-day basis, solving problems, discussing requirements, all these kind of things. And this is something that the big companies have, like the Siemenses and the Alstoms of the world, the Hitachis. They're all presence. They all have local offices here in Australia. And I think anybody who wanted to do this from Europe would fail inevitably. Yeah. So
I agree. Same. So you mentioned that I'm the head of the company. I'm not the head of the company anymore. I was a CEO of the signaling company until January 24, and then I'm transitioned to another role. For 1.5 years, I did testing of the ETCS software with the testing team. It was very hard but nice. And now I'm back to business development, and I really enjoy that role. That's my roots, to speak with customers, and I completely agree with you. Freight operators, they're not going to trust an overseas company. They want local presence.
Yeah.
That's absolutely sure. Plus, a first-in-class project, it's not just about the generic product. It's about a V-cycle. There is a whole Senelec compliant process that needs to be followed for the vehicle, and that you need local specialists, you need people close to the customers. There is RPEQ in Australia, meaning you need to be registered as an engineer here to do several tasks of the V-cycle. So I completely agree with you. And from that perspective, our collaboration with Wabtec, it's nice because they have a large presence in Australia.
Talking about collaboration and coming back to Europe, because I did mention earlier when we started that we talk about Skoda in a few minutes. It's been a few more minutes, but let's go to Skoda. Most people here in Australia and also in Germany, where I'm originally from, know Skoda as a manufacturer of cars. Of automobiles. We do have some Skodas here in Australia, even some police cars I've seen recently that were provided by Skoda, which is quite surprising and seems to speak for the company and the quality. I didn't really see them in the rail space or in the rail signaling space. So how did this come about that Skoda took over the signaling company? Is it a takeover or is it another collaboration? Maybe we start there.
Yeah, I wouldn't phrase it as a takeover, but in February 23, Skoda Group acquired 93% of the shares. So basically, Skoda Group came, discussed with my previous shareholders, Lineas and ERTMS Solutions, and they just agreed on a share deal. And the two shareholders sold their shares to Skoda Group, who became the majority shareholder. I was shareholder of ERTMS Solution. I did the stock swap, so I'm now a shareholder of the signaling company. Why did Skoda Transport do this? Because Skoda Transportation is manufacturing passenger trains, mostly in Europe. The biggest market for them is Czech Republic and Slovakia. They are the historical train suppliers there. But they did not have their own signaling solution. So when you are manufacturing trains and then the trains are becoming more and more digital, and all your customers, they say, I want these trains, but with ETCS because it's in Europe, then it becomes complicated for you.
Yes.
So they realized that in order to grow, they needed a signaling part inside their group. I don't know if you were aware, but in September, Skoda Group announced their first project with us. So our product is now being integrated into passenger trains to be supplied to RegioJet, which is a train operator in Czech Republic. And these trains are electric and multiple units, and they will be deployed starting 2028. About the brand and the car, I don't know if it was 5 or 10 years ago, Skoda Group sold all the car activities to Volkswagen.
Yes.
And the connection between Skoda Group and the car was already like not direct. The car manufacturer was down several levels, and then Volkswagen acquired it. But still rented the brand. So Volkswagen was like paying every year money to Skoda Group to benefit from the Skoda brand. And that's been sold 2 or 3 years ago. So the brand now, the Skoda for cars belongs to Volkswagen.
Yeah. Interesting. But what you just said was also interesting, that Skoda, as a train manufacturer, basically wanted to have their own signaling capability, particularly regarding ETCS, because for train control, what's new there is that for the first time there's really signaling equipment on board the trains. I mean, not for the first time. If you look at automatic train protection, there was also equipment on the trains. But for ETCS, I think there's a much harder competition with the big multinationals that have their own rolling stock and also their own signaling. And it seems to be quite a trend. So I could see this with CAF in Spain. They are providing trains. They now have a signaling division with their own products for ETCS and also for CBTC, also starting with onboard. And also with Stadler in Switzerland, they have also created a signaling division developing onboard signaling solutions for their own trains so that they don't have to go to direct competitors like Siemens or Alstom to buy their onboard solutions. So that seems to be a trend, and explaining this makes a lot of sense. I was just not that familiar with the Eastern European market, so I didn't really register Skoda as a train supplier. Maybe I should have made my homework, but there we go. But yeah, it seems that you seem to be at the right place at the right time all the time. Yeah, so I think the deal with Linneas was already a very fortunate coincidence. I really liked your baby example with the baby gift, your analogy there, and the deal with Skoda again has basically secured you the next orders and the market entry, if you will, on the passenger train side.
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's correct.
The interesting bit will probably be in the future, but that will be a problem, or maybe not a problem down the line, whether you can really get your equipment on somebody else's vehicles. And well, maybe let's see, wait and see. Maybe Australia is the first example of that, where the customer is not a parent company of yours or a stakeholder of yours or a shareholder or so. But I think if you develop a product that has clear benefits in the marketplace, it's a good thing. And I believe it's really advantageous, especially in ETCS, if you are a late starter. Yeah, because you can you don't have that much historical baggage, like your own hardware development that you want to stick to, even though it may be a bit bulky. But you can fit them on high-speed trains that are new in the factory, and with retrofitment of freight locomotives, it's not that interesting anyway as a business. So you basically have turned it on its head, and you say, okay, well, retrofitment of freight locomotives is pretty much the most difficult task when it comes to ETCS onboard. So let's start there. And if we can get it done with freight locomotives with limited space, then we can pretty much do it on any type of vehicle, because you can hardly think of anything with less space than a freight locomotive.
Yeah. You I think you put the finger on a very important thing. We started with no legacy, meaning we were in a very unique place. Only CAF, I think in 2008 when they started, they also had no legacy, but it was 2008, so they had to start with baseline 2. And then they had to do baseline 3, and now they're going to do baseline 4. We were very lucky to start with baseline 3, release 2. So the ETCS set of specification when we started was 3.6.0, meaning, of course, we had to do the change request and the error corrections. And now our software is for baseline 4 system envelope 2.1. So the reduced envelope, we are there already because we started so late. So it's an advantage. It's an advantage. And then in 2019, we could buy off the shelf a SIL4 computer that fitted all the criteria.
Yeah.
In 2015, it would not have been possible.
Yeah. That answers the question that I still wanted to ask. Which baseline have you developed your onboard product against? And baseline 4 is arguably the most difficult of them all because of all that backwards compatibility and so on. But obviously, if you have a product that has been developed according to baseline 4 right from the start, that's another potential advantage that you have over other suppliers that basically came back from the old days of baseline 2, and then basically they have to adjust and amend their product for each and every new baseline. And I believe looking forward, and the future will bring further additional baselines. The next one will probably be when FRMCS, the new communication system, will be there. So I think a superpower for an ETCS supplier would be to be able to flexibly adapt the product to those new requirements, to future baselines. If every time a new baseline is out, it takes you, I don't know, 3 years and millions of euros to bring your product up to that latest baseline, to that latest standard, that's really a killer, because you have to try to recoup that money from the marketplace, which means from the customers where you install your ETCS equipment. And there's a lot of price pressure on ETCS anyhow, being that customers say ETCS is mostly too expensive. So there's a strong pressure on the prices down from the customer side. At the same time, the suppliers try to get as much money out of it as possible in order to recover their investments. So that's a very difficult situation, and I think you probably have quite a good opening there. Being conscious of the time, I wish you all the best going forward. I think, well, from what I understand, you've got a pretty promising opportunity here. As long as you don't mess anything up, obviously. I mean, that's always the risk of a new supplier, that something just goes wrong. And there's some notified body or independent assessor finding something that's really not right. But then on the other hand, if you have your processes in place, and you have a solid product development with a relatively simple way how to adjust the product to new requirements, you should be on a good path.
Thank you very much, Frank, and I really enjoyed the time speaking with you. And I invite you, if you have more questions or challenge, let's do it again in the future. Feel free to throw questions and trigger discussions. It doesn't need to be only the two of us; can be with other stakeholders in the industry. I'm fine with it. I enjoyed. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well, and for everybody else, thank you for listening, and hope to see you again in another episode. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Hi, it's Doc Frank again. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you like the content, then the best way you make sure that you don't miss out on any of the future episodes, just subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you also get access to all the previous episodes, which I'm pretty sure there will be many that are of interest to you. Another thing that you can do to help not just your own environment, but the entire industry, is to share this episode with friends and co-workers, because it helps more people in our industry to get educated, and an educated rail signaling industry is a better industry. With that said, thank you very much. Hope to see you again soon, and bye for now.